We have Grandmaster Vidit Gujrathi getting ready for his game against Praggnanandhaa. This is the battle for the places between 9th and 12th at the Paris Freestyle Chess 2025. We have Prag coming in his green jacket, looking sharp there. The battle between two top Indian players is always very exciting to see. They have been part of the same Indian squad that won the Olympiad gold and now facing off against each other here in Paris. The tournament hasn't gone as per their expectations, but still both of them will be looking forward to a huge fight here. Prag did choose Vidit out of the three players that he could play from, that had Gukesh, Richard Rapport, and the shake of hands, and off we go. Let's have a look at the position here. We have the rook, the king, the knight, the bishops, the rook, queen and knight. And Prag opens the game with g4. A very interesting choice here by Prag because this opens up the queen. It could also bring in the knight. Vidit responds symmetrically with g5, which is also an interesting decision. You can play f4 now. That seems like a good move, but you could also prepare it with e3 and f4. Prag brings the knight out to g3. He feels that the knight will look at these squares and it's well placed. And Vidit also brings his knight out, so it's a symmetrical line that's happening here. Let's see what Praggnanandhaa continues with. He pushes his pawn to a4. And I guess he wants to play, maybe grab some space, a5, a6. It could be interesting there. So Vidit immediately stops the pawn in its tracks, plays a5, equalizes the space. And knight comes out to b3, just putting the knight here, attacking the pawn on a5. The knight is very well placed on b3 square. And now Vidit just pushes his pawn to e6. Maybe now f5 does become a very tangible idea here. And Prag pushes his pawn to d3. But it already feels like Vidit is the one who is doing this f5 business quite well. Although, look at this, a5 pawn is under attack and Vidit defends it with b6. He's like, I'm not getting into any messy stuff with you winning this pawn. e3 played here by Prag. And perhaps the idea is to also play f4 just like Vidit's f5. The times on the clock show that Prag has taken more time out of the opening. f5 played by Vidit, a strong move in the position. But the move e3 definitely means that Prag wants to take and push f4. That's his plan. Yeah, he takes the pawn, g takes f5. And now e takes f5. And f4 played. So a good move here by Praggnanandhaa. Pawn takes, Vidit takes it back, and you take back ef4. So very interesting how this position has developed. The only difference here is that this knight is on b3 and the pawn is on b6. And Vidit goes knight h4. He's stopping the white bishop from coming to this beautiful long diagonal. That is where the bishop wants to be. Imagine if a bishop comes here, drops back, the queen moves up. It would be a mating attack here. So Vidit says, I'm dominating this bishop on d1. Prag goes to d4. He's not just attacking the pawn on f5, which is well defended for the time being. But he wants to bring his knight to f3 so that when traded, his bishop can come here. And Vidit now brings his knight to e7. I like this move a lot, knight e7. Because when you play knight to f3, he wants to bring his other knight here to g6. And when you take, knight takes, the bishop is still kind of dominated there. So Pragg has to decide what next to do. He goes rook a3, a very aggressive move actually, because he wants to play rook to b3, put pressure on the b6 pawn perhaps. Could be a good idea. And Vidit plays his knight to d5. Very interesting move here by Vidit. The knight is in the middle and the center of the board and is looking at all these interesting squares. Goes rook b3. He's now eyeing the b6 pawn here. And knight comes out to b4. So he's played his knight here to b4. And isn't that a free pawn? Like you can take and rook b4. Oh, there's c5 because the bishop defends this. Aha. So first Pragg moves his knight away to f3. He's offering a trade here. And Vidit comes back. He's not ready to trade. He comes back to g6. He's eyeing now the pawn on f4. Very interesting how this game is developing. And Pragg makes a mistake. He takes on b4. But it feels like an interesting move because he's won a pawn. He's going to take back. And then he also defends the f4 pawn. So ab4 taken. Rook b4. So he's defending the pawn on f4. And defending the pawn on a4. Bishop comes to e7. Now look at this. He's eyeing the rook. If you take here, queen takes, king c8, there is no threat. So Pragg quietly goes back rook b3. But if you see now, f4 is under pressure. There's also a4 hanging. Vidit chops off the pawn on a4. And with the queen looking here, the bishop here, the other bishop coming in, this looks very, very dangerous for Praggnanandhaa. He must be careful here. He brings his knight to d4. But that is another error. Because now Vidit can bring the queen to d5, centralizing the queen, defending his f5 pawn, attacking the knight, also threatening queen a5 to land a checkmate on a1. Vidit slightly ahead on time. Pragg has 23 minutes. But Vidit is calculating hard. He does find queen d5. Good chess here on 17th move. Now Vidit has a close to huge advantage. And Pragg sacks here. Wow, what a move here. If you take on f5, there is c4 that he wants to play. And then if queen a5, he wants to take, and maybe take on b6 and take on a4. That could be Pragg's idea of taking on f5. But it's a mistake because not only Vidit can take here, which is a fine move, but queen a5 simply lights out. It's a very powerful move, threatening mate in 1. And you can see Vidit thinking hard. He had 25 minutes when this move was to be played. He thinks for 10 minutes and finds the best move, queen a5. Pragg goes c3. This is fine. And now perhaps the best move is bishop c5, because if d4, you have bishop f7 attacking this rook here, which is a brilliant move. But Vidit goes for a check. It's the second best move in the position. It's a good move. And now king c2 played by Pragg. And this pawn is this bishop is attacked. So bishop c5 seems like a very nice move. But Vidit first goes bishop f7, which is also a great move. Imagine if you take on e7, I have bishop b3 check. If king b3, this is just a mate in 1. So bishop f7, c4 played. And yes, bishop c5 attacking the queen. A powerful move here played by black, attacking this queen. If d4 trying to block, I have bishop takes c4. And so Pragg goes queen h1. He moves his queen to the side of the board, but he's completely in trouble now. Vidit goes d5. What a move here by Vidit. In fact, it is a super powerful move here by him. Pragg takes the pawn. And there are many nice ways to now attack here. One of them being, the simplest would be to take. He goes bishop b4. Taking on d5 is impossible here because of queen takes, but bishop b4 is a nice move because you're threatening this. There were also some weird tactics with knight f4, rook f4, followed by rook d8, but for now it seems like the most human move, bishop b4, knight e3. He defends this pawn, but hey, this is now serious stuff. Look at this, rook f4, and you have this bishop d2 attacking here. These are all computer generated lines, and with it the main problem is he's down to 3 minutes. He does find the best move again for the humans. Check here. He's taken away the d2 square from the king. He's so close to checkmating. Look at him. He's there at the board. He's observing it carefully. He knows he's about to almost beat Pragg. Bishop takes d5. That would be the best move now. He takes it, bishop d5, but this time down to 3 seconds just. He's now up, has 33 seconds. Knight to e4, attacking the queen. Now simple move is queen e7, and black is better, has pressure here, rook here. Pragg is in big trouble, but with it blunders. He goes queen b5. He absolutely makes a huge error, because now knight c3 is a great move. It launches an attack on the bishop, also is a double attack, and all of a sudden the game will turn around. Not winning for Pragg, but he will be out of danger. Knight c3 finds it. It's a strong move, and you can see there Vidit is now surprised. He takes on c3. Things have completely turned around, and from being totally winning, it's equal. Rook takes the queen. He takes the queen on h1. And you can choose between taking on c3 or you can take on h1. Which piece would you like to take is the question. Pragg prefers to take the bishop on h1. And Vidit can save this bishop now. Bishop g7. And what will happen here is white will be a pawn up, but black has good compensation. In fact, it's opposite colored bishops and has all the pieces beautifully positioned. So it's an equal game. But Pragg goes rook d5. And remember, if there is one kind of positions, that Pragg excels in, it's these ones where you have this technical job of converting a slightly better position. Pragg is so good at it. So first bishop h8. The f4 pawn is still hanging. Goes rook e1. And now important moment. Should you take with the rook? If you take with the rook, maybe there's check, and I'm a bit worried with the bishop coming up at some point. So better to take with the knight. That's what Vidit does. Rook f1. Pressure mounting. The king looks a little bit unsure here. Bishop g7. Preferred king b7, but then there was this bishop f3 business. So bishop g7 played. And now rook d7, attacking the bishop and the pawn. And now bishop h6 is the best move here. But with just a couple of seconds on the clock, Vidit blunders, and I think this is a huge mistake now. Because after rook takes rook, you take with the bishop. You can't take with the knight, as you will lose the bishop. So rook takes rook, bishop takes, and just take on h7. Yeah, he's just blundered the h7 pawn, and that pawn is a crucial pawn. Oh, but instead of taking here, Pragg goes for a check, and he has a better way to win that pawn. King b7, check, c6, check. King b8, and now h7 is hanging. Takes it. Rook takes h7 has been played on the board. Wow, this is turned around insane in an insane way, because not only did he win the pawn, he's also cut the black king off from the 7th rank. c6 pawn is weak. The knight comes into b6, looking to come to d7 to check and win the bishop. He goes knight e5. And maybe there's a tactic. Bishop takes c6. Oh, finds it. Bishop c6 on the board. And if knight takes, there is knight d7 check, and I win the bishop on f8. And white is already pushing better, clearly doing well. King c7. He takes on f8. So completely better now. There are two extra pawns. Black has some chances to draw because the pawns are all separated here. b2, d3, h2. But seems very difficult. Rook h6 check. And Vidit comes up, king d5. The knight comes into the game, knight e6. b4 played. He pushes his pawn ahead. And knight to c7 check. He plays king to c5. He gives a check on h5. And king d4. Well, this was a very risky move. He should have gone back, because now king d4, he has put his king actively forward, but in a way he's almost come into a mating net. After king d2, there is just I just have a check and it's a mate. So, but Pragg goes for the check directly. He allows the king to come forward, and Vidit plays it. And now the rook comes to c5. Well, this is curtains now. The knight has no good squares. If you see, has to go rook a6, and you could see that how this rook was so beautiful when it was attacking, and in the end game could do nothing much. Rook c4 played, and maybe now the threat is knight c7. Goes rook b6. Rook check. Pragg is now doing this in style. The king has to move, and he trades with knight d4. Every trade is lost for Vidit, so he has to keep the pieces. He goes knight a5, hoping for a check here and some counterplay somewhere. But rook e5 is a nice move. The point is, if b3 I simply go king c3 and I'm better. So he goes knight to b7. And would you want to trade here? Rook b5 looks like that's a good move. He goes rook e6, which is also a great move. Then rook does not have any squares here to go to. Vidit tries to avoid the trade. But now there are many ways to win. Knight f5 wins. It's pinned here. h4, just pushing the pawn, is good enough. The pawn is moving forward. Everything is well positioned in white's camp. And Vidit, who was very close to victory, is now completely lost. He stops the clock, resigns. Praggnanandhaa wins the crucial game in this fight for 9 to 12 spaces, and there you can see Vidit mentioning queen e7 instead of queen b5. If he would have played that, I think he would have won. The main issue, of course, was that he had only 3 seconds left on the clock, and sometimes when you are low on time, you no longer play like a super GM, you just play something that comes to your mind, and that's what happened. And with its woes in this tournament continue, because he played pretty decently in the round robin, but could only win 2 games out of 9, lost 7. uh, but in the sorry, he could lost not 7, he lost 9 games out of 11. While here he was also again close to victory, he blundered under time pressure, and Prague, of course, made no errors in converting this. Meanwhile, Richard Rapport beat Gukesh, so it's very likely if Prague manages to hold the next day, he will face Rapport, um, while Gukesh and Vidit will be on the final, on the bottom position, and won't have to play the last match. But we'll see. For now, both Vidit and Gukesh will have another chance to strike back in the second classical game. For now, we leave you with some scenes in from the playing hall in Paris. So I'll put that link.
Oh my god, look at this. Queen b2, king e4, queen g2, king f5, queen f3, and you try to go towards d7 c8, right? That's the best way to go.
Glad to play. What do you do? Amruta,
अरे let the chat find.
you found it, huh?
इतना difficult है तो they will feel very big joy in finding it.
Imagine if, from having 3 pawns up, you can even have this happen to you.
Boom.
Queen f7, GG chess
Well
for
done,
finding it.
well done.
Sam Yadaya, Harshit Kumar.
Rohit, I like your suggestion. Sagar, you can read his message.
Agar by one humble suggestion is to make better to name ChessBase India Hyderabad as ChessBase India Telugu. This will help to promote chess not only in Telangana. Yes, we have ChessBase India Telugu as well, but we also have Hyderabad, both.
Both you have. Sagar Bhai is going to have one chess base India in all the states.